The Russian Civil War, a pivotal event in 20th century history, shaped the course of Russian politics and governance for decades to come. While the Russian Revolution toppled nearly 4 centuries of Romanov rule and ended the monarchy, it was the Civil War that established and solidified communist rule in Russia for the rest of the century. To understand the complexities of the Russian Civil War, it is necessary to examine the key players involved in the conflict and their ideologies. The war was not a simple struggle between the Reds and the Whites, or communism versus monarchy. It involved a multifaceted clash of political and cultural forces that had far-reaching consequences. By the end of 1918, Russia was out of the First World War and had conceded vast amounts of its western territories to the Central Powers under the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. Russia had to acknowledge the independence of several nations, such as Finland, Ukraine, and Georgia, and cede territory to Germany and Austria-Hungary. Leon Trotsky, one of the key revolutionary figures, led negotiations with the Central Powers. Despite the severe territorial losses, Trotsky prioritized securing the survival of the fledgling Bolshevik government over any other consideration. Meanwhile, the Whites, a conglomerate of monarchists, Republicans, nationalists, and others who opposed communist rule, were mobilizing their forces. Additionally, peasant uprisings erupted across the country due to the communist government's agricultural and tax policies. There were also rumors that Western powers were preparing to support the Whites by sending additional troops into Russia. The Whites, or the White Russians, were a disjointed alliance of political factions unified solely by their opposition to communism. However, their internal political divisions significantly weakened their overall effectiveness. Throughout the Civil War, different white armies often operated independently, their generals hesitant to collaborate due to political disagreements. Rivalry within the white ranks sometimes led to situations where one general would prefer seeing another defeated or killed by the Bolsheviks, as it could further their own ambitions. The most prominent white generals during the Civil War were Alexander Kolchak, Pyotr Angel, and Anton Denikin. Kolchak, who led the Whites for a brief period before being captured and killed, did achieve some successes against the Reds in 1919. Denikin's forces were known for their anti-Semitism, blaming Jews for the Bolshevik Revolution and the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. Such sentiments often resulted in pogroms and mob violence against Jewish communities in captured towns. Estimates suggest that around 150,000 Jews were killed during the Civil War. On the other hand, the Red Army, the military arm of the newly established Bolshevik government, faced a different set of challenges. While the Whites struggled with disunity, the Reds were united in their determination to maintain a communist state. Initially, the Reds controlled limited territory, but their focus was concentrated in the industrialized West, giving them an advantage in terms of resources and support from workers. The Reds also efficiently utilized Russia's extensive railway network to rapidly transport supplies and troops, ensuring a swift response to threats and a robust defense against multiple adversaries. Leon Trotsky played a central role in both the Revolution and the Civil War. His skills as a statesman, propagandist, and military strategist were invaluable to the Bolsheviks. He reorganized and trained the Red Army, transforming it into an effective fighting force. Trotsky's decisions often proved correct, even when initially met with skepticism from fellow communists. Lenin narrowly survived an assassination attempt in 1918 and went on to play a crucial role in maintaining the Bolshevik government during the Civil War. He suppressed any signs of factionalism within his party and showed an unwavering commitment to victory. Lenin's promises to non-Russian minorities, such as the right to secede, secured the Reds crucial support from these groups. An often overlooked faction in the Russian Civil War was the Black Army, a coalition of anarchist groups. The most significant of these groups was based in Ukraine, led by Nestor Makhno. The Black Army attempted to establish an anarcho-communist society in Ukraine from 1918 to 1921. They fought against various groups, including the Germans, Ukrainian government, Whites, and ultimately, The Reds. Initially, the Reds collaborated with the Black Army against the Whites, but once their usefulness ended, the Reds turned on them and decimated their forces. By 1921, most of the Black Army was either defeated or forced underground. The Western powers monitored the situation in Russia closely. Given Russia's former alliance in the First World War, Western powers were concerned about the fate of military supplies provided to Russia during the war. Britain was particularly active in Russia, deploying troops to ports like Arkhangelsk and Murmansk to secure supplies. They also aided the establishment of a national army in Estonia, helping to repel a Bolshevik attack. The chaotic nature of the Civil War meant the Allies sometimes fought the Reds, Germans, and even White factions. However, their main goal was securing their own interests in the region. As the Red Army gained the upper hand, Western powers gradually withdrew their support for the Whites and ceased their involvement in the conflict. By 1922, there was little political will in the West to continue the fight against communism. Given the heavy toll of World War I, Japan was the last foreign power to withdraw from Russia, maintaining a presence until 1925. Although Japanese involvement was not critical, they controlled significant territory and rail lines in eastern Russia, which the Soviet Union later reclaimed. The Russian Civil War effectively ended between 1920 and 1922, as the Whites lost most of their leadership and support from Western powers. The cohesive nature of the Red movement and the fractured state of the Whites led to a decisive victory for the Bolsheviks. In 1923, the USSR was officially established, regaining much of the former Russian Empire's territory, except for the Baltic states and Poland. The Russian Civil War's outcome had profound implications for the 20th century, giving rise to the first communist government in history and shaping the global political landscape for decades. The establishment of the Soviet Union and the spread of communism would go on to define the ideological struggles of the century. So, conclusively, the Russian Civil War was a pivotal moment in history that set the stage for the establishment of the Soviet Union and the rise of communism as a major global force. The conflict's complex dynamics and far-reaching consequences resonate to this day, leaving an indelible mark on world history. And there you have it, a deep dive into the pivotal Russian Civil War that set the stage for decades of Soviet dominance. This conflict reshaped not just Russia but the world, leaving behind a legacy that continues to reverberate today. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. Stay tuned for more stories from World at War. Until next time, take care